Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dennis and committee members. My name is Brian Rippet. I'm a teacher at Wattell High School. It's actually Wattell High School and Middle School in Zephyr Cove, and I brought with me a couple of our test subjects. Let's see. They're going to just give a little bit of their experience, and I want to preface it with some acronyms. MAP is Measures of Academic Progress. That's a test that is, or a series of tests that is given or has been given in quite a few school districts around at least northern Nevada. Our district adopted it about 8 or 9 years ago. Actually, no, more than that, I'm sorry. It changed from one to the other. They've been doing it for many years, up to 3 times a year per subject, every single classroom from kindergarten through 9th grade. Once they get to 9th grade, they no longer need to take it. It has no bearing on their graduation. That's MAP or MAP. And then CRT is the criterion reference test. That is the predecessor to the SBAC. They used to give those in different subject areas at different grades. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Hi, my name is Kyla Rippet, and I'm a 9th grade student at George Wattell High School. For both CRT and MAP testing, our teachers put a lot of stress and pressure on us to do well. It came to the point where students and our principal would tell us that we would have to go to either summer school or take helpful reading or math classes if we didn't do well on these tests. And over the years, I remember many kids from my class pushed to tears during the test because they would be so stressed out and frustrated. We would usually prepare for these tests about 1 to 2 weeks before, and this would stress us out and distract us from our other important work during the school year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aiden Rippet. I'm an 8th grade student at Wattell High School. In my elementary school, my class was really competitive, and when we would take the MAP test and get our scores, we'd always start comparing them. And when people who scored under, below grade level, if it was at 210, people would say, oh, I got a 215 or I got a 220. When people that scored below grade level would hear that, and they knew that they scored below grade level, they'd always feel that they were stupid and then that they weren't very good at learning. And when people would feel stupid, they thought everyone got a high score, and they were just one of the only ones with a low score, because no one who got a low score would brag, oh, I got a low score. So then they thought, I'm the only one, and then they would get upset and start making up scores, and then they'd get singled out.
Thank you.
All right, so I have a few comments of my own beyond theirs.
Make sure you identify yourself again.
Brian Rippet, for the record. And let's see. I know this bill is about conducting an audit, and when I think of audit, I think of a deep dive, maybe a scary one when people are coming in to see what you're doing. And I hope that is how this bill gets passed. So it's some intense work to satisfy the question, what are the tests? I hope we go beyond just district level officials where they fill out a form and say, we do this, don't do that. I hope we go beyond the principals to say, what test do you do? We need to go to the teachers in the classroom and ask them, what are the tests that you are being required to give or supervise or do? We need to go to the counselors and ask them, what tests are you required to give or supervise or do? And what happens to the needy kids that need counseling while you're doing that? I hope we go to the librarians and ask them, how many times are you required to supervise this? What's happening to your library when you're supervising these tests? I hope we go to other support professionals, other support personnel, like secretaries or registrars that are taken away from their job to organize and collate the test, to supervise the test, to track down the kids that may not have heard the all call to go to the testing center. And I hope we ask about all the opportunity costs. What facilities are closed? Today we did makeup for the ACT test, which is for all juniors. We had 3 kids absent that day. Our library was closed the entire day because that's the place that has a room that is adequate to take them. Let's see. Now, Senator Woodhouse mentioned that the number of tests that a kid takes. She was understating that. I have a printout of Kyla's older sister, Shaylee, of the MAP tests. These are all of her MAP scores. starting in second grade is when she started taking it. And she has hovered between just below the cut score or grade level and just above over 50 times. She's one of those kids that know, hey, the cut score, the teacher tells you, it's 216 for this test. She does the last question. You never know when that one is really ending. And the score pops up. Is it 215 and I feel terrible about myself? Or is it 218 and I feel good about myself? In spring of 12, in reading, she was 1 point above the cut score. Felt okay. In the fall of 12, exactly at the cut score. Probably felt bad. Winter of 13, 1 point above. Spring of 13, 4 points above. Then she went down to 2 points above. Hovering at that line. Did this tell the teacher any useful information about what she needs to know? No, but it made a kid feel really, really bad about themselves. I have a story about my son, Aiden. I'll read it to you. Aiden has an interesting story. The district started computerized map testing 5-year-olds his kindergarten year. None of our kids, meaning my kids, had used computers, iPods, or video games at home by this time. A computerized test was a fun experience in lights and buttons. In his first 3 or 4 map tests, Aiden hovered around the first percentile. Actually, I looked it up. It's second or third, and that's not the good 2 or 3 percentile. We were actually told he had difficulties and might always struggle with testing. By second grade, he improved, and by third grade, Aiden tested into GT, which is gifted and talented. His subsequent map tests were all in the 98th plus percentile. His CRT tests were similarly high, usually the top in the school. No one ever looked into this huge discrepancy in testing over the course of those 2 years, meaning district officials, principals, wow, somebody's doing something amazing. No teacher was ever rewarded or even asked about this incredible growth. Since 6th grade, we have refused map testing. It has no bearing on his success or how teachers deliver instruction. We also refuse that of the SBAC testing. It has no bearing on the child. It has very little bearing on what I do as a teacher, actually none. And I heard, I've got via video, they also have a younger sister. This is Avi, their youngest sister, who, after taking the SBAC test the very first time 2 springs ago, the SBAC was meant to replace the CRT tests. It was sold to us as, this is the real test that will really tell you what we know and how good your teachers are doing. There was a tremendous amount of pressure. CRTs were a couple hours, a couple of different days. The SBAC, one section, took an entire day. It starts with me saying, why are you crying? I was picking up Avi from school.
I didn't know the answers to anything, and I didn't know how to type it out.
What do you mean type it out?
Like, we had to do something, like, with books and, not real books, just, like, organizing books on the test, and we had to, like, type things out, and I didn't know how to do it.
I'm sorry.
She's a very high-achieving student. If you ran into her, you'd fall in love with her, like a dad should say. She took the test very seriously. It was frustrating. I think the key point there is when she said, we had to do something with books, not real books. It was something on a computer where they had to organize. It is not real life. It is not real learning. It is not testing real learning. I know there are things that we have to do, but what our district does, in addition, we do the map testing in order to predict how we might do on these other tests and then remediate and fix. We are constantly trying to game the system so we can be just above. So like my daughter could be 1 point above the cut score, 1 point above the score for the SBAC. So when we get that printed out as a school, it has a star or a check instead of an X, and we look better. So I ask you to really look into the district testing and take this audit very, very seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions before you go?
Just one question. I'm going to add to it. I mean, I get your frustration. I've been there myself. I think the audit also, just so you know, and from my perspective, the audit ought to also ask the classroom teacher. I think it ought to drill down to the classroom teacher, but they also ought to ask the classroom teacher, what tests do you use that actually can diagnose, or I like to call them diagnostic tests, ones that actually help the teacher know where the deficiencies are, because they come back with not only data, but also they know what the questions were, so they can start working on those sets of questions. And I think that's what we're trying to get out of the audit. So well, first of all, how many tests do we give? Which ones are redundant? Second of all, which ones really do help us in educating the child? So I'm hoping that's what we get out of this audit.
May I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree, and I would never want to dictate to my colleagues what tests they can or cannot take. We do have an English teacher on campus who likes the MAP scores, 1 out of 4 or 5. When we had the HSPE, we would do HSPE science. I taught science. I taught physical science to my 9th graders, or 10th graders. So they would take that test and come back, and it would show they were low in earth science. Well, they're not taking earth science. 11 of the 33 questions were on earth science. They got 5 of 11 of them correct. The book is 600 pages long. There is no way to tell what they really did or didn't know. It just gave us a score that said you're low in earth science, the course you took 2 years ago. So, yeah, please ask the teachers, and I want to do one more plug. Please ask the support professionals who are being taken away from their regular jobs about the testing that they have to do and their role in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, and be careful driving home. Okay, we have, I think,